Last night, the Mariners lost in a fashion we've seen far too often to start the year. Let's talk about it here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. This is Trident Gonzalez and Colby Patino for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by Ultimate Baseball GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an MLB GM and managing your baseball franchise? Then this game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimatebaseballgm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you listen to us every single day, say what's up in the comments. I want to see all of our everydayers going strong even after a tough Mariners loss. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon by scanning the QR code right above my head. The link, as well as our social accounts, is also in the description of this episode. And on today's episode, we'll take a look back at the Mariners 7-3 loss to the Brewers last night, talk some Chris Flexen, talk more about the Mariners' horrid DH situation, Julio looking a bit better at the plate, and we'll wrap things up with a look at tonight's matchup between Logan Gilbert and Colin Ray. First pitch is at 6:40 tonight, and you can catch all the action on the Mariners' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. So, as I said, 7-3 the final score last night at T-Mobile Park. Brewers take the first game of this 3-game set. Chris Flexen struggled a little bit once again. Mariners made some costly mistakes. Let's start there. Let's start with the one that really sticks in my mind. That was Eugenio Suarez getting picked off with Jared Kelenic up to bat, a chance for the Mariners to at least tie the game, maybe even potentially take the lead. Kelenic's obviously been the Mariners' best hitter so far, at least through the last week or so. And Corbin Burns gaming the pitch clock a little bit, waited into the last second, turned around, caught Gino slipping, and that ends the inning. And that really, I think, for me, killed the Mariners' threat of winning this game ultimately. So let's start there. What were your thoughts on that play and just the Mariners' performance overall last night?
I knew exactly what Burns was doing once the clock got to about 6 and he wasn't budging. I was like, okay, he still has a pickoff left. He's going to let this thing get down to 1, see if he can get Gino thinking he's going to, time it up perfectly and pick him off. And Gino fell for it, which is unacceptable. And the level of Mariner fans who are just like, oh, well, that's a mistake. It'll happen. What if Colton Wong had made that mistake? Would you have had the same reaction? No, but Gino gets a pass because he's Gino and he's awesome. And he is. That's inexcusable. It's unacceptable. It's not okay. It's not a physical mistake. It's not a throwing error. That is a mental mistake from a veteran on your ball club against the ace pitcher of a really good team who you finally have a shot to scratch a run or two across in that moment with your best guy at the plate, and you gave them an out. They didn't earn that out. You gave it to them. It's a catastrophic mistake, and of course the Brewers score another run, and then the bullpen just really can't keep them down for too long, and you just sacrifice your entire shot of winning that game. Why? To get one step closer to home plate on a 3-2 count?
Yeah.
The cardinal rule of base running, 3-2 count, 2 outs, you're going. Everybody in the ballpark knows you're going. It's not a steal attempt. You have to make sure the pitcher is going to home plate. Yep. And if that means you stand there and you get a half a second or 2 or a full second late of a jump because you're making sure the pitcher is going to home, that's part of the trade-off. You cannot get picked off in that situation. You have to force Corbin Burns to throw a strike you have to force Corbin Burns to get Jared Kelenic out. Not you. You did your job. You got on base. You have to force him to get Kelenic out. And Kelenic right now is the hardest out in the Mariners lineup. And you didn't force him to do it. You let him off the hook. And when you're going up against aces like Corbin Burns is, and you have an opportunity, you probably only get one per game. You cannot make that mistake. So it's not okay. It's not like, accidents happen. Sure, they do. But accidents have to have consequences. I don't think Gino should have been back in that game. And I know that's not Scott's way. Scott doesn't do that. He doesn't hang guys out to dry. That's not hanging guys out to dry. That's holding a player, a veteran, accountable for a boneheaded mistake that he should know better by now. He should know not to make that mistake. It's unacceptable, and it's kind of been a running theme in a lot of these ugly Mariner losses. It's not that they just get hit around the ballpark. It's not that they can't score runs. It's that they make stupid, idiotic decisions on the bases, or they don't cover the right base on defense, or that they drop an easy pop up, or they an easy relay throw and they drop it. Like, these are the things that the Mariner are causing the Mariners to have these kind of ugly losses, not because they're not talented, not because they're not hitting. It's these little things, and they're starting
Mhm.
to stack up, and they're really annoying. Hopefully Gino learns from it. There should be, I'm not saying you should bench Gino for a week, but he didn't need to go
Clearly,
back out
Jake
to that
Lamb should
game.
get more at bats than
Sure.
Gino at this
Yeah,
point. Yeah.
that joke never gets old.
Hmm.
So yeah, to me, he shouldn't have been out there. Put Caballero out there. Caballero's not going to make that mistake. He's not going to get on base, but he's not going to make that mistake. And then Gino followed it up with some really good at bats to end the game. So at least he made up for it, right? Oh, yeah. Well, okay. So yeah, it's getting really annoying to see absent-minded baseball. Not bad baseball, absent-minded, just lazy, sloppy baseball is the worst. And that's what
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah, it's very sloppy. Pretty much in every loss the Mariners have had, they've had a key blunder, whether it be on the base pass or defensively, or both. Right? There's been a lot of the times where it's been both.
Questionable management decisions.
Some questionable management decisions. Just really overall, just the Mariners shooting themselves in the foot, beating themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, when you lose a baseball game, there's going to be some of that. There's going to be a little bit of that every single loss. But there's some pretty glaring mistakes that have happened over these 9 losses that they've suffered to start this year. And there's a good reason for them being 8-9. And, they've also been able to survive a couple of these mistakes as well and be able to win and overcome those, which, you're going to have to do, right? Things like this are going to happen. Even veteran players like Eugenio Suarez are going to make blunders like this, but you got to learn from it. You can't do it again. And thankfully, this happened in a relatively meaningless game on a Monday in the middle of April instead of
Right.
September or October.
Still got to be held accountable for it, in my
Absolutely,
opinion.
absolutely.
And I think
Totally agree
benching
with that.
Gino in that situation sends a message to the ball club that this is just enough is enough, guys.
Yeah,
And we know Scott is the ultimate dad energy, and like Gino knows that he messed up. Like, I'm not saying that Gino doesn't know that he messed up. Of course,
mhm.
Gino does, and I'm not saying you should punish him any further. It's not really punishment; it's just accountability. Gino, you
Yeah,
messed up, my man, and we've done this enough this year that I got to put my foot down here. And I think if you're going to do it to a player, Gino's a pretty good player to do it to because he gets it. He understands. He's not, he's not a young kid who doesn't understand why he's being picked on. Gino understands that he messed up.
yeah.
So to me, holding him accountable is the least you can do. And perhaps he did privately. We don't know what those conversations are, but it's unacceptable. It just flat out at the end of the day, it's unacceptable.
I mean, on the flip side of that, though, like with Gino, knowing that he messed up, shouldn't that be enough? Like, he
No,
should know better. Like, you should
no,
move. Like, can't you just move on? Because, like, look, hindsight of how the rest of this game went and how the rest of this game went for Gino specifically is 2020.
I
But
don't
at
care
the
about
time, it was
that.
a 3-1 game, and he gives you a better chance to win than Jose Caballero does. Like, doesn't the fact that he knows that he messed up, isn't that just good enough? Because that
No,
he's going to be able to
no
get better from that.
accountability. No, be accountable. You screwed up, and you're going up
I mean,
against
but I
Corbin
think there's
Burns.
ways that
You don't know that.
you can be
You also don't
accountable
know
with.
that Burns is going to get pulled for 5 2/3 because of a chest injury. You have one shot against aces every time. One shot. If you're really lucky, you get 2.
Mhm.
That was their shot. They could have tied the game. They could have put more pressure. They could have gotten the pitch count up. Gino blew it. At the end of the day, Gino blew it.
It's
Now, is Gino the biggest reason they lost that game?
no,
No. No, 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 no.
no.
But again, by the way, I don't want it to sound out like, oh, Scott has to take him out. Like, to me, I would. I think there is something to accountability, but Scott's different. Like Scott does things his own way, and the results speak for themselves. So I'm not jumping on Scott too hard here, but just like for me, I think
Yeah.
he needs to find the bench after that. Like, you have to send a message somehow, some way. This is unacceptable. Like, this level of sloppiness, this many times, this early in the season, not going to fly.
To me, I just think there was maybe a way to hold him accountable without having to bench him and without basically taking away any other chance that you had of coming back in that game, because Gino gives you a way better chance of coming back in that game than Jose Caballero does.
Well, you took away your best chance to win last night, so
I know, but there's still 5 more innings to play in that game. You got another, couple of opportunities
Game
for
over.
Gino to. All right.
Game over. The game was over the minute Gino took that step towards third. Let's be honest about it. Game over.
I mean,
We all
did.
know it.
It did really take the heart out
You
of
killed
the
any shot you had to win that game, man. Come on.
Well,
Don't
and
sugarcoat
the issue too, right? I'm not sugarcoating it. I'm saying realistically, he
Gino
does give you a better
apologist.
chance. I'm just saying that he does give you a better chance of trying
Yeah,
to
he
come back
does,
in that
he
game
does.
than Caballero does.
Sure.
So maybe there's a different way of holding him accountable than just ripping him out of the game. But that said, it was. I thought the game was over as soon as they gave up 3 runs in the second inning, because you got
That's
Corbin
true,
Burns
too.
on the mound.
Yeah.
This is one of the best
That's true,
pitchers in
too.
baseball.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that they actually, they were able to score 3 runs over the course of the night. That would have been good enough to make a comeback, but Chris Flexen wasn't able to hold it at 3, and then the bullpen wasn't able to hold it at 4 either. So let's talk about Flexen. Let's talk about this bullpen in just a moment. But real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by Ultimate Baseball GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an MLB GM and managing your professional baseball franchise? Well, your dream can come true, and this game is definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the season, and lead your team to glory. You're responsible for hiring the right coaches and staff, managing team finances, scouting and drafting players, managing difficult personalities, navigating your franchise through free agency, and all the ups and downs of a season. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Baseball GM is completely free and playable offline, or you can play on the go as you want and when you want. It's basically the Jerry Dipoto simulator. So instead of saying Chills, Dipoto did it again, you can now say Chills, I did it again. There we go. Download it now, and Locked On Mariners listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up on the app stores. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. And a reminder that tonight's game between the Brewers and the Mariners starts at 6:40, and you can catch all the action on the Mariners' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. And guess what, folks? People are hungry. They need meals, and we're trying to do our part to get those meals to them through Feeding America. That's our current fundraiser that we've had going on for the last few weeks. And we're about a little over halfway to completion, actually a little more than halfway to completion of this fundraiser. And I haven't checked it today. So Colby, I don't know if you've checked it. Do you have a status report for us on how we're doing on that front?
Yeah, we are at, I thought I had it. Oh, there we go. Yeah, we are at 5905.
Woo! Almost at
Yeah.
6K. Let's go.
Yes, we had in the last few minutes a $100 donation from Daniel. I'm not even going to try and pronounce your last name, and a handful of anonymous donations. So yeah, thank you, Daniel. And thank you to everybody who's donated so far. It's been an awesome ride, and obviously we're going to cross 6K here, in the next 24 hours or so, and that's going to be awesome because our original goal was 500. So
yeah, pretty cool. Thank you so much to everyone that has donated so far. If you've already donated but want to continue supporting the cause, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. And if you have, ask a friend, ask anyone that might be a Mariners fan, or just anyone that wants to help the cause, to come subscribe to our channel, because every subscription that we get between the start of this fundraiser and the end of this month, we are going to be donating 10 cents, which is a meal. 10 cents for one meal, or $1 for 10 meals through Feeding America. It's pretty cool. And we've raised a lot of meals so far, and we want to continue raising as many meals as we possibly can before the end of this month. And if we get to 10K, $10,000 raised, I will be getting a tattoo. So look forward to that. We'll be doing some content with that and all that. All right. So Chris Flexen, not as bad as he was against the Cubs. Not as good as the Mariners needed him to be, though. What did you see out of him last night?
It's about what you'd expect from Chris Flexen. 5-6 innings, 3-4 runs. That's pretty much who Chris Flexen is. He threw the ball pretty well for a majority of the night. The second inning got away from him. Let's stop the lazy, that's kind of like what Robbie Ray does. Ha 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 ha. No, that is stupid.
No, stop it. No.
In my spray bottle. No, that's the dumbest thing you could possibly say. Because Chris Flexen is nothing like Robbie Ray. And hey, remember all those people who were like, "Oh, Robbie Ray sucks. Chris Flexen should be in the rotation instead." Feeling good about that, are you? Didn't think so. Flexen was okay. He was okay. He filled in at a replacement level, which is who he is. The Brewers were really aggressive last night, which could have been really nice for Flexen. You could have, gotten 6-7 innings if you had been a little bit more better at pitching.
Sure. Yeah.
He gave up a lot of hard contact.
That's some good analysis here on the Locked On Mariners podcast.
He's not very good. What do you want? He's not very good. What's a pitch that Chris Flexen has that is an above average pitch in Major League Baseball right now?
Well, and the thing is, too, he took advantage of their aggressiveness at the plate in the first inning, had a really clean first inning, very quick first inning. I think it was only 9 pitches or something like that.
It was it was insane. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, here we go. We're going to get something that was closer to the Angels start than, the Cubs start. Very low bar to clear, obviously. But yeah. But
he did clear it, so good for him.
But then the second inning, no, he caught a lot of play. I don't know if you saw the screenshots of game day of the pitch tracker. It was just right down the pipe. The pipe every single time, and they took advantage. Rowdy Tellez had a little flare into left, and then I forget who had the second hit, and then Luke Voigt was able to drive in the first run there, and they just created too much congestion on the base pass for Flexen to overcome, and he ends up giving up 3. Thankfully, it wasn't more. There was a pretty real chance that it was going to be more than that, but. Yeah, just not a good night for Chris Flexen once again.
I'll say this though. Chris Flexen has in 2 of his 3 starts given you a chance, albeit a small one, to win a game against Shohei Ohtani and Corbin Burns.
Yeah.
He hasn't been good. Certainly hasn't been great, but that's not nothing.
He was really good in the Angels start.
Yeah, he was very good. So Flexen is who he is. I think anybody should look at a Chris Flexen start and look at it and say, hey, if we win this game, that's a real bonus. Because he's a number 5 starter, number 6 starter. He's just a dude. There's nothing special here. The stuff is very ordinary. Command, kind of 50 grade most nights. If it's a 55 or a 60, he might be able to go 6, give you 2 runs and 6 and something like that. But the stuff just hasn't ticked up like maybe we were hoping it would after his first year. He's just a dude. That's really all there is to it. And I think to expect a lot more than what you've gotten so far, it's probably being way too optimistic, and it's probably going to be a while that Flexen's going to be in this rotation. So he's got to find something that works. But I think if you're the Mariners and you say, hey, every time Flexen goes out there, or let's say 90% of the time Flexen goes out there, he's going to go 5 or 6 and give up 3 or 4 runs. I think you probably just have to take that. And the one other time out of the 10, he'll be the worst pitcher we've ever seen. So I feel like you just kind of have to take that right now, because it's not like you even have somebody in the minors who's pushing Flexen out of this rotation right now. So you're kind of in between a rock and a hard place with Chris.
Yeah, right now the expectation should be heading into every Chris Flexen start is that the bats are going to have to show up to the party. Yeah, you're going to have to score runs. You're going to have to score 5, 6, 7 runs in order to win that game, most likely, especially because this bullpen is starting to figure things out, but there are a couple of pieces that are still in it right now that are a little bit shaky, like Diego Castillo, who had one of the worst scoreless innings you'll ever see last night.
He's not good.
It's bad. It's rough.
It's hard to see it getting better, honestly.
It sucks, and it feels like you kind of, I don't know. it feels bad having to think about moving on from someone like Diego Castillo, knowing what he has been in the past, but he's a different guy right now, and he's just not competitive at the moment.
No, got to do what you got to do. So,
Yeah. So,
I mean, I don't know. Like I said, the bullpen's in pretty good shape right now in terms of,
mhm,
available arms and whatnot. So maybe you can carry him for a little while longer, but he doesn't have 20 outings to figure this thing out. He's got like 2 or 3 at most. And
yeah,
when you look at guys like Saucedo, who's throwing the ball really well in Tacoma, we know that the Mariners, they're really good at finding these reliever types, and we know they really like AJ Puckett, who was a
mhm.
minor league signing. He's already at AAA now. Wantain looks like he's back to what we thought he could be out of the bullpen. Like there's just a lot of options, and Diego. By the way, there's a really strong chance if you DFA Diego, nobody picks him up, and you might actually be able to send him to AAA.
Yeah, but Diego right now, you said it. He's got a couple more innings, maybe if that. Right
Mm,
now, at least that's what I would think from the outside looking in. He's basically auditioning every night now for his Mariners career.
yeah, and
So
by the way, Matt Festa velocity starting to get back up for Festa.
there we go.
Still some command issues, obviously, that he needs to work through, and that's the big thing. But yeah, reports are right now that he's back to 92, 93, which is about where he's at normally instead of 90, 91. So we'll see.
Yeah, eventually I think they're going to get this bullpen figured out. Like I said yesterday, I think they're going to end up finding their 8 guys that they roll through the season with at some point here. But right now is just kind of the filling out period, and right now it just doesn't seem like Diego Castillo is going to be long for this bullpen. Um, but hopefully he turns it around, because we have seen Diego at close to his best. We haven't really seen the peak Diego Castillo that we saw in Tampa Bay, but we've seen a really good pitcher still there. So maybe he's still in there somewhere, but he's got to find him pretty quick, or else
Yep.
he's going to find himself either in Tacoma or somewhere else in Major League Baseball. All right. Julio looked a little bit better last night. Not amazing still, but a little bit better. Hopefully that's a sign of him turning the corner. We're going to talk about that and preview tonight's game between the Mariners and the Brewers in just a moment. But real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by So Rare. Our new sponsor, So Rare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 Major League Baseball teams. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next-level competitions and rewards. MLB game weeks happen twice weekly and span a 3 to 4 day cycle. And at the end of game week, So Rare MLB managers who rank at or near the top of their leaderboards win a variety of rewards, which can include So Rare scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, and VIP experiences like meeting MLB stars. Prizes may vary depending on the competition. Head to SoRare.com/locked-on. That's spelled SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's SoRare.com/locked-on to start playing today. And this is the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, we talked a lot about Julio Rodriguez yesterday during our mailbag episode. We were asked if we were seeing glimpses of a sophomore slump, if we're concerned about that happening. He's not looked particularly great at the plate the last 7 to 10-ish days. But he did have a little bit of a better night last night. He had a home run in basically garbage time in the bottom of the 8th last night. What did you see out of Julio? Did you see some promising signs out of him last night?
No, pretty sure he sucks now.
Mm.
He no, he had another ball that he squared up pretty good into the outfield. Unfortunately, like most of the balls that he squared up lately, it was caught. The home run was certainly nice. It was to right field. I think it was off Matt Bush. If I'm not mistaken, am I remembering that correctly?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. Bush, not a pushover, not a great pitcher or anything like that. It's not like it's Devin Williams, but whatever. It was to right center field. He certainly still has power. to all fields. And so, yeah, he missed a few cookies again. But I think he did look a little bit more comfortable. It looked like he was really focusing on kind of staying within himself and just trusting his bat speed and trusting his strength and all that stuff and just letting that play. So yeah, overall it's a pretty good night for Julio. Uh, at some point we know Julio's gonna get hot. We know he's gonna catch fire and he's gonna carry the offense for a few weeks. It's gonna happen. It just right now, it's one game, it's one swing, right? So we don't know if that's gonna turn everything around for him, but sometimes with guys like Julio, that's all it takes. Just one good swing, one good at bat, and all of a sudden you kind of feel like you found yourself again. And then you go out there today against Colin Ray, maybe you slap a double, hit another ball hard, draw a walk, something like that, and all of a sudden you're feeling like you found your swing again. You're right back to where you need to be, and sometimes you get in these big spots, or sometimes you kind of slump for a while, and you think you can get it all back in one swing, and that's just not how baseball works.
Right.
It takes time. As how long it took you to kind of crater your numbers, that's how long it's going to take you to climb out of it.
Mhm.
And the only thing you can do is try and win the next at bat, the next pitch. So I think I don't think Julio's in a bad space, like in a bad headspace, right? Like
Mhm.
right now, I think Colton Wong is in a pretty bad headspace.
Mhm.
He's
Agreed.
really, really pushing to try and figure this out. And sometimes in baseball, that's the opposite,
Yeah.
right? You grip the bat harder, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
So you're kind of, I don't think Julio's there. I think, like I said, Julio's slump is still him hitting like 250 right now, 240, with, 3 home runs and 4 doubles, 16 games or 4 stolen bases, 17 games into the year.
Mhm.
You can do the math on the pacing on that. Like that's still a really good year. So it's nice that Julio is slumping and he's still putting up numbers that, like, if the Mariners DH was putting up, we'd be like, oh, wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
Good job, Mariners DHs.
Yeah, speaking of that, this has been well documented on Twitter, but right now,
I'm already tired of it.
I know, but it's a problem right now. The roster right now, as things currently stand, the DH spot is
Let's be
it's a
clear.
massive problem.
No. Let's be clear. The Mariners aren't a DH short, though. The Mariners are a bat short.
They're a bat short. It's just,
Right.
yeah, it so
It's not a
happens that it's
DH
being,
problem. It's that the
yeah,
lineup's not long enough.
it just so happens that it's being reflected out of the DH spot right now.
Right.
Yeah, and so, you know, to me, I was talking to someone on Twitter about this earlier today. If Tommy La Stella and Cooper Hummel and all these guys that have filled the DH spot were the plan after all this, why didn't you just re-sign Carlos Santana? You know what I mean? Like, why didn't you just do that? I know
You
that
just
they
trade
were,
for him in June.
yeah,
This
which
guy.
I honestly kind of feel like they might end up doing.
Yeah, they Santana makes a lot of sense right now.
He's also off to a pretty decent start last time I checked.
Is he?
In
Okay,
Pittsburgh?
cool, cool.
Yeah. Last time I checked, he had like a 121 WRC plus. I don't know if that's
Pittsburgh's off to a pretty good start, I think, too.
yeah, they've been pretty good. Yeah. They've been a lot of fun, and they've been doing most of this without O'Neal Cruz too. But
He's overrated, but okay.
But not to get sidetracked.
He is, though. Admit it.
Not to get sidetracked, Colby.
Admit it.
I mean, there's a lot of swing and miss in this game right now. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Say
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Anyways,
I still
go
like
ahead.
him though. He's a lot of fun.
No, he's fun, but like you do one fun thing every week and everybody acts like he's Shohei Ohtani. By the way, can we talk about Shohei Ohtani struggling with his jacket and that being the lead story on SportsCenter?
Is that really the lead story on SportsCenter?
I mean, it sure seemed like it.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, you were doing what I said we should not do, and that's you got me sidetracked.
It's more fun than talking about the Mariners DH spot right now.
Anyway, I know that they were pretty in on Brandon Belt at some point, so I know that wasn't actually the plan. And even before Belt, I assume that Belt wasn't even plan A with the DH situation either, because the Mariners, I mean, their philosophy with this spot has been getting someone that can play in the field, and you just rotate guys throughout that spot. So eventually, I assume it got to a point where they were like, okay, we'll look at first base / DH types, because there you go, Brandon Belt. And, they had Carlos Santana last year, but I mean, this is a disaster right now. The guys that are filling out, one of your spots in your lineup, doesn't matter that's the DH or whatever, it's a black hole. Cooper
Yeah.
Hummel is not a competitive major league hitter. Tommy La Stella is not a competitive major league hitter. We've talked about this. We've gone over that. We're not going to beat, a dead horse here. But really the key for me, I mean, the last shoe to drop for me before I'm starting to hit the panic button a little bit and looking outside the organization for an upgrade, Taylor Trammell. And if Trammell isn't healthy or isn't a viable option once he gets healthy, you got to go add someone, because this can't last. This can't last for too long. It's still really early, but it's the what you're getting out of Hummel, La Stella, and even, I mean, right now, like
Right.
the answer to me, just let AJ Pollock play every day. I've said this over and over again. And yeah, we've talked about how worried we are about him getting overexposed, but this is the position you've found yourself in. AJ Pollock gives you a way better I feel way more confident in AJ Pollock and his track record than anything Cooper Hummel and Tommy La Stella could give me.
Somebody's hasn't seen AJ Pollock's numbers this year. Don't look up Tommy La Stella or Cooper Hummel's, but
no, Pollock has not been very good either, and that's the problem too. So again, you need to. This is going to end up with the Mariners having to look outside of the organization and add someone, unless Taylor Trammell just pops off.
They were probably going to do that anyways, but
yeah,
I think you were hoping at the very least that those guys could get you to July, the break, at least not being a black hole. And unfortunately they have. And obviously La Stella gets hurt in spring training. And then all of a sudden, like that one thing you were trying to avoid, the guy who can only play DH like Nelson Cruz or JD Martinez, you've got him, just the one who can't hit. So
the guy that doesn't hit for power.
Cool. It's kind of funny that, they wanted to avoid that. And that makes sense, right? You don't want a full-time like he can only DH. That's not the way most teams do that. The 27 teams don't have a full-time DH. So that part's fine. But then, you accidentally ended up getting the worst type of that guy because La Stella got hurt and now he's not hitting. So he can't play the field and he's not hitting. So you kind of ended up with that anyway, just a bad version of it. So we'll see. Trammell should be in the lineup here in the next few days in Tacoma, starting his rehab assignment. Same with Dylan Moore. Both of those guys could really help the Mariners right now. Assuming Dylan Moore ever gets healthy, which I'm still skeptical about, but
we need to see him actually play consistently and, not show any pain on back-to-backs, all that stuff. So a lot of questions still need to be answered on that front. This bench, though, for the Mariners is a mess right now. Sam Haggerty landed on the 7-day concussion IL yesterday.
Wasn't very good anyways. He hasn't been.
Yeah, no, he hasn't. Yeah, no. It's just the bench it's bad. It's bad.
It's a black hole.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's really bad right now. And like you mentioned, Colton Wong's also not giving you anything out of, offensively out of second base. I'm willing to wait a bit longer on him because he has the track record, right? That's the difference between me getting impatient with Cooper Hummel and Tommy La Stella, and then, and then on the flip side of that, Colton Wong, or me waiting on Colton Wong a little bit more because he has track record. Tommy La Stella has track record in 2019. But the last 3 years he's been hurt and he's been bad when he has played, when he's been healthy. And so
not bad, but he just hasn't played a lot.
In San Francisco? Do you want to look at the numbers? He was pretty bad.
You can look up last year's numbers.
Pretty bad.
I think he's still like a 90 WRC plus. If the Mariners had a 90 WRC plus out of their DH spot right now, nobody would be complaining. So, okay, people complain all the time, but you
yeah. But by the way, Wong on the flip side though posted 100 plus WRC pluses the last 2 years. Like I'm willing to wait on that guy to hopefully figure it out. Plus, he's one of your bigger additions of the offseason. You kind of need him to figure things out. Plus there is a lot at second base on the market.
Plus, you literally have no backup plan right now.
Yeah,
because Moore is out. Haggerty's out. So it's Caballero is your backup middle infield. He's your utility guy right now.
Yeah.
By the way, we'll probably see Caballero in tomorrow's game. Getting a start, I would think, against Lauer, the lefty. I do wonder if maybe the Mariners just need to pick a guy and roll with him for a week consistently, whether it's Hummel or La Stella. Like it's tough to get into any kind of rhythm when you're getting one start every 3 or 4 days, so if they're going to go that route, I would give those at bats to Hummel. He carries a significantly higher upside.
Mhm.
But we'll see what they decide to do. I imagine that they're going to stick to the status quo right now, um, which is less than ideal, but they also don't have a ton of other options. For me, it would be Mike Ford. I'd just call it Mike Ford and say, hey, you're the
Yeah.
guy until Taylor's healthy.
Yeah, call him Mike Ford. Call up Colin Moran. I don't really care.
Mhm. Anybody who can grab a glove and throw without, blowing their shoulder off is
Yeah.
an upgrade over Tommy La Stella right
Well, and
now.
even without the elbow shoulder thing with La Stella, like, was he even going to be able to play the field with the 2 Achilles injuries that he's coming off of
I
either?
think I think
Like,
they were feeling good about that
yeah. Well,
defensively.
all right. Lastly, Mariners Brewers tonight. Again, you can catch that on the Mariners hometown broadcast via SiriusXM on the SXM app at 6:40. What do you think? Logan Gilbert, Colin Ray. Gilbert, we've seen a really good start out of him, really mediocre one, and then a really good start out of him again in Chicago. Do you think the trend continues, or what's your confidence levels that Gilbert can can provide the Mariners with another quality start tonight against the Brewers?
He's pitching a no-hitter tonight.
All right.
Heard it here first, no-hitter.
Is that betting advice?
6 walks, but no
Oh,
hits.
okay.
So, no, I think Gilbert will be he'll be pretty good. It's a right-handed heavy lineup. So the slider will be, a pretty big weapon. We'll see if Winker's in it tonight. He was not out. He was out yesterday with a little bit of an oblique or a shoulder or something like that.
Clearly, he's scared to compete, Colby.
Sure, he doesn't want to get booed by the 11,000 people. Which who would boo Jesse Winker? Like,
yeah, what?
didn't
Yeah.
work out, but like, don't hate the guy.
I don't have any hard feelings towards him.
No. I think it's not like you're giving him a standing O either. Just like, oh yeah, hey, Jesse. Okay, cool. Thanks, man.
For me, it's more just like, oh, hey, it's Jesse Winker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I'd be like, hey, Jesse Winker. Like, if somebody was like, yeah, I'd be like, okay, yeah, cool.
Eh.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. It's kind of the same reaction when Kendrys Morales would come into town. Like, okay.
My favorite thing though about Kendrys Morales, we're getting sidetracked again, but like I love when Jack Zarinczyk tried to re-sign him. He ends up going to Minnesota. And he's like, all right, you know what? No, you're coming here anyway. I'm trading for you. Like, you are going to be a Seattle Mariner, whether you like it or not.
Remember how bad he was for Minnesota? It's because they slapped the qualifying offer on him and nobody wanted to give up a first-round pick to sign him. And he got really bad advice from whoever his idiot agent was and was like, I can get you more than that.
No.
And he didn't sign until after the draft. And then like 1 month in Minnesota, he was a Mariner again. So no, I think anyways, because we got to go.
We do have
Gilbert
to go,
tonight. I think it's fair to expect, 6-7 innings out of Logan tonight. Give up 2 or 3 runs, keep your team in the game. Ray's off to a pretty nice start, but he's certainly no juggernaut pitcher. The Mariners should be able to score a few runs, and you kind of have to. You really don't want to mess around with the back end of this Milwaukee bullpen. So we'll see. It's a bummer they couldn't keep the game close last night because apparently Devin Williams was not available. So he will be tonight, and you do not want to face Devin Williams in a tie game or trailing by 1.
You mean
more.
Diet Devin Sweet?
Yes. The rich man's Devin Sweet, as I call him. So, yeah. So let's get a lead. Let's hold it. And by the way, we haven't seen Brash in a few days. So either he's been demoted from his role or they're working on some stuff, and maybe we'll see it tonight. But I think Gilbert's going to have a pretty good outing. The Mariners can score 4 runs tonight. I feel really good about their chances to win.
I do too. Colin Ray's been pretty good though. He's kind of rehabilitated himself. He was working over at, I think, Driveline, one of those places. And he was posting some pretty good videos of himself during the offseason, and the Brewers were the ones that ended up taking a shot on him, and it's paid off, and then some for them so far in the early going. He's only made 2 starts, I think, but it's been pretty good so far. So it's going to be tough. Tough challenge for the Mariners offense tonight. Hopefully the bats show up, and hopefully Logan has a feel for his secondaries. That's always going to be the thing for me. Every single start for Logan until he shows that he can consistently do it. So, All right. That's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez. That's DANEGNZLZ. And Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well over at Locked On Mariners. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen. Catch us after tomorrow's game for another post-game edition of the Locked On Mariners podcast. But for now, have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.